Hello, Jeff.
Hello, Lord Bag. What's up?
Nothing. I see you're growing a little bit of stubble.
Well, you know what I found out is that my chin used to be up here, but now it's down more closer to my shoulders. Because when you start to put a little bit of facial hair on, you start to realize that your chin isn't where it used to be. It's where it wants to be. And so now I've got a chin that starts at my chin, but is now it comes down and encompasses down to my shoulders. So I'm not sure what I can do about that, but I'm going to try something.
Okay. I got a chin that starts at my chin and ends at my tits.
I'm in trouble. So I'm gonna try and stand like someone told me in a picture years ago. So if you want to get rid of your chin in a picture, you got to put your tongue at the top of your mouth. So I'm gonna try and talk with my tongue at the top of my mouth for 30 minutes here and see how that goes.
I was told if you want to make the picture look good, get out of it.
Or do it in the dark.
Do it in the dark. Yeah.
No flash.
Too much. It's like, I love it. That's great. So you have, obviously, because you're growing a beard, you haven't been working.
No, but I am going to shave today because I am going to work. So nice. I was down and out, as you know, and then last week I skated. Just didn't get. I'm on what they call on call, and I didn't get called. And anybody out there that knows the airline industry is in a little bit of a little turmoil right now. They can't seem to find their rear end with both hands, and so what ends up happening?
The fact that you didn't get called
is insane.
It's insane. Like, they're canceling flights left, right, and center. We bought a flight for Carrie Ann to back to Virginia on that new Breeze. On that day after we bought it, they canceled the flight.
Beautiful. Hey, so where were they going? Were they going to Long Beach or LAX?
LAX to Norfolk.
Norfolk. Yeah. Hey, so that reminds me.
Still want to try.
Well, yeah. I Breeze. I see them in Vegas now, and it's a really cool little concept. Brand new Airbus 220s, which were originally Bombardiers, the C series jet. For anybody that cares or doesn't care, and Airbus bought out Bombardier, and so they make them in Quebec and they make them on the East Coast, I think now. But hey, we're almost coming up on 2 years. Remember, we flew into Norfolk, and then we had the storm of the century at your place out there. So yeah, beautiful part of the country. I don't know much about Breeze, but I do have some friends over there, and I wish them well. So,
wish them well. We're trying to make it. We're trying to make it so Mr. Axelson and his wife come out next summer. So you should make that trip. We should all hang out in the Virginia area.
Yeah. Oh, this like the next, as in the upcoming summer.
Not this coming one, but next.
The next one.
Yeah.
Okay,
then we've gotten to that age where we have to plan a year in advance.
That's kind of like, I almost felt like that was like one in a row there for a second. I was trying to figure that out.
One in a row. One in a row.
Hey, so just before we get into hockey, I want to talk about what's going on back home. They have a heat wave up there, and it was up over 30 Celsius in Terrace. And of course, everybody that knows from up north knows that the temperature is taken at the airport in Terrace, which is up on a hill. So it's much warmer in the city. So what's 30? About 85? So 85 to 90 up there's really warm when you've been having it around.
When you go from 0.
Yeah, 13 to 15, which is Celsius, which is what, 45 to, or 50 to 60 area, 55 to 60. So anyways, congrats on summer. I hope it lasts up there. I want to get up there in July or August. I'm not sure when that's going to happen, but I will be there. And I'm praying for a little bit of that good weather up there. But,
that would be nice.
You know what? In Vegas, it's $1.08 today. So it's not like things are going to, like, if it's raining and 55, it's not going to break my heart. Right. So
we called mom and dad the other day via FaceTime Saturday night. So we went they do this thing on the beach here where they have jazz bands play on the beach every couple of weeks. And we went and hung out at it, and we called mom and dad, and it's completely dark here. And sun is just at noon height. I love it. I just forgot. So good. Missed that.
My mom's favorite question is it dark down there yet? Yeah, it's been dark down here for a while.
It's dark everywhere else.
She's wearing her sunglasses at 10 at night talking to us because the glare from when it's nice up there. But anyways,
you got to snap up there every so often because a guy's cutting his lawn at 11 p.m.
Oh yeah, you'll get people cutting their lawns at all hours up there. I guess that's kind of in the northern hemisphere. I guess that's kind of common that someone would cut their lawn at 10 or 11 at night, or maybe 5 or 6 in the morning because it's light both times. So
the only time I've experienced more light was when I went to Norway and we were way up there and it was 3 a.m. and it was bright. And it was me and Alfred Robles. We were walking around. I can't remember which city we were in, but we were walking around the city like it was 2 p.m, going in just 24-hour stores, thinking it was we were at a normal time, and then just looking at us. These guys drunk? What are they doing? What they do? They're walking around like this. But good times.
One of my favorite stories as a kid growing up, where it was up north, there was, I'll never forget the time when we played golf at 9:30 at night. Yeah, let's go. And me and Flats went up. I don't know if we had his brother Mark with us or not. Might have been Berger would have been with us, but Ian Bergsma.
Johnny Five Beers, that's what we call him.
Yeah, Berger, best beard in the league. And so it could have been us, but I remember going golfing at 9:30 at night. That was awesome. So
and were you able to get, because it's a 9-hole course, right? What was
it was 9 holes back then. We easily got 9 in, and then they were still there in the clubhouse. So went in and had a couple drinks after with them. Not like crazy, just a beer after the round, which I still remember that too, because we don't drink and drive around here. Don't do that anywhere. That's a public service announcement.
My goodness.
I got one other one for you, though. I'm kind of all over the road here right now, almost like I've had a drink. I got to tell you, Super Deeker made an appearance this week at the Meyer House, and we had a blast.
Oh, no way.
We had Rob on it. We had Kyle, Chris, and Terry. Everyone had a go at it, and nice. Super Deeker was alive and well. And we had it on after the Avs won the Stanley Cup on Sunday night, so we went over for dinner. And I'm telling you what, Super Deeker was a good time. A good time was had by all. So I'm not sure when you're gonna. Yeah,
we'll do it right now. Super Deeker is it's an awesome hockey training system that can be used as a game. Anybody can play it. All you need is a Super Deeker system and a hockey stick, and boom, you are stick handling and trying to get your puck over top of lights, and you find out how bad you are at hockey, and you can make yourself much better. It's a super game for the kids, for the adults, like you say, after everybody goes to bed, and a little bit of a drinking game. And I see many videos of these young kids playing on them, and they're just fantastic. You think hockey's good now? Wait until Super Deeker gets all these kids into the NHL, and they're able to do amazing things. Go to superdeeker.com, use the code SLICES, get a little bit of a discount, and boom, you are just as good as Jeff and I from enjoying orange slices and Super Deeker. Boom.
Yeah, that was well done, and we're really good.
Script.
I know, just wing it. So,
by the way, people asking when we're going to get some orange slices merchandise. Soon. I just started selling the Henry Big Dog Energy t-shirt, and I actually just got some hats made. I'll show the picture. This is the hat right here. That's right, orange camouflage, and with young Henry on it. But we're gonna probably do the hat with something that Jeff and I come up with. Maybe you guys could help us out. We're thinking about elderly gentleman hockey is the name we're thinking about putting on a t-shirt.
Yeah, well, I think that would be great. And I have to laugh. Quick story about Henry. So last time I was with Carrie Ann and Ian, which I was at the house about a month ago, I guess, in SoCal there. Carrie Ann's talking to me, and we're talking about, like, she's like, well, when you get the dogs haircuts, like, what do you think? This and that. And I'm like, well, in Vegas, we just give them a buzz, right? But you can't just give Henry a buzz.
No. You give him a buzz, there's someone's gonna clog up the thing.
So I'm like, oh yeah, that's we gotta look at this a little bit differently. But great dog, and that is a cool shirt, and we should come up with something. A friend of mine, I actually could grab the hat. A friend of mine did a hat for us, which is basically the logo that's behind Ian.
Oh.
And the logo I have behind me is beautiful British Columbia again this week, because I just decided I'm going to start doing it down here. After we did Dana
70.
and Hoods and Chris, and they all just kind of had basic backgrounds of their basement or their house behind them. I'm like, you know what? If I'm not going to get my act together and get Slices and the skate behind me, I'm just going to put beautiful British Columbia behind me.
Much easier for you to set up. You don't have to do anything.
Oh,
It looks good. You're fantastic. We
Oh.
don't have a guest this week, by the way. We decided just to talk about the end of the playoffs and what's coming up, and then go back to guests next week. And we need to have these conversations every so often. We just can't have a guest coming over to our house. We gotta, you know, we have to have our conversations amongst ourselves every so often as well. So here we are. Here we are. And by the way, that was just over. It was that the first round of the playoffs? It was when you were here. That was when we went and seen Edmonton, LA.
Holy cow. That's, you know, I guess that was over a month ago then.
Mm-hmm.
But if we want to go to the top of the mountain and kind of come back down, you know, we want to start at the top and take ourselves down and end up in the ditch. If you talk about the Colorado Tampa series,
Yes.
it was amazing to watch Colorado evolve. And who's that? Pearl?
All three of them decided that
they're going to give it to you. But I'm really impressed with the evolution in the, I guess, the maturity and the willingness to do what they needed to do to get it over the hump in Colorado. That team finished the playoffs 16-4.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, that's insane. Now, you could look at it and you could, you know, go, wow, Tampa's the teams they played. But St. Louis, a lot of people thought St. Louis was a cup contender. And they took them out in 6, and they could have taken them out in 5 if they hadn't fallen asleep at home. So this is how good this team was. And I know they like to get on Kemper. And, you know, in spite of Kemper, it's almost. But you know what? The guy's got a Stanley Cup ring. You got to give him credit. It's, you know, he's a Stanley Cup champion now.
They used to do the same thing with Osgood. Remember when they used to do that with Osgood? He's not that good.
Yeah, and all these guys have done is won Stanley Cups, and they only hand out one a year. So he did enough to get it by. And Franz Kuss, the backup, did a great job bridging the gap for them in the Edmonton series and part of the St. Louis series, I believe. So when Kemper got our Nashville series, when Kemper got hurt, but good for them. And I will say this, we want to talk about a few people today, but Bednar, obviously we can talk about their superstars, but I want to talk about Joe Sakic for a second. Had the pleasure playing with Danny Lorenz, who was a Seattle Thunderbird, who was one of Joe's best friends. And Danny and I played together years ago. Hendo, we called him, and great guy. And we played golf together years and years ago, me, Danny, and Joe in Seattle.
Mm-hmm.
So long ago that the course isn't even there anymore. It was at the end of the runways on the south end in Seattle. Anyways, what I was.
Were you still in junior, or was this afterwards?
No, we had just come out. So I was just out. But what I was most impressed with was and Joe was a superstar, how nice a guy Joe Sakic was. And I gotta, you know, and his playing speaks for itself. But now his management also speaks for itself. And more than anything, some of the trades he's made have been phenomenal. But his patience has been even more impressive, letting that team mature, not going crazy, not pulling levers he didn't need to pull. And now they're at the top of the mountain. And I mean, I don't see a lot of changes with that team for next year. We'll see what happens with Kadri, maybe a couple other guys. But they are basically set up, ready to go again. They have to figure out what they're going to do in goal, whether Kemper comes back. And I can talk some more about him, but I'll throw it to you for a few minutes.
I'm with you the same way. I think a lot of general managers in the league need to kind of take a note out of his book. And what he did was he general managed. He didn't micromanage that team. You know what I mean? He made the play. He tried for things, and sometimes it didn't work out. That when he brought in Bednar, that was a cluster and a half when that guy came in. That was when Patrick Waugh decided to I got to go home now. I'm going to work at Bombardier. So, you know, that like just the way it started out. And the fact that they can go from, what was it, 68 points his first year there?
Mhm. That might have been
To
48, actually. It was something insane. It
something
was like,
insane.
yeah,
And keeping on track and not getting into the woods, you know, into the ditch too far, and just we got to keep the course and doing the right things. And I remember going there and people not wanting to go to the games. Like, it was a very fickle place. They're like, they're shit, we're not going to see them. And rebuilding your fan base with you, you know, that's something that nobody really talks about. If you put a group of guys that just keep building, you'll build a fan base and probably a new fan base and bring back those other people that were already fans. And I think uh, some of these panic moves scare the fans off and don't just makes you think nobody's running the ship, you know. So there's no captain. I think general managers, if they don't look at what he did and try to uh, emulate what he did, you're out of control.
and if you look at Colorado, if you just look at some of the players they picked up this year, of course, they lost Grubauer, but they weren't going to give Grubauer 6 years, right? So they bring in, cost them a first rounder and a good prospect, young defenseman to Arizona for Kemper. So you get a guy. I've always liked Kemper. You know, I liked him back to LA. So there's a guy, a good number one NHL goalie. Okay, I think Kemper still has room to grow his game. And
Absolutely.
and you know what's funny is here's a guy that is a Stanley Cup champion now. Then they go get Cogliano. They get Lehkonen from Montreal. Okay, Cogliano didn't cost them much, but the guy gives you so much energy. Lehkonen slides in on your first line with your top players in the world in McKinnon and Landeskog or Rantanen. Like, this guy he's so, you can put him anywhere in your lineup, and he's unreal. And I think last year when he was in Montreal, I think they might have had him on the third line. And of course, he scored the game winner to put them by Vegas. And then he scored the game winner against Edmonton in the second round, and he scored the game winner against, Edmonton third round, and then he scored the game winner, I think, the other night against Tampa. And then here's another one: it's trading. He traded Matt Duchene to Ottawa, and I think Toronto was involved in that deal somewhere too, but they got the fourth overall pick back. That was only a few years ago. And the fellow by the name of Cal McCarr is the guy that ended up taking fourth overall. I know, that's why I said a fellow by the name of, because I knew you would have no idea who he was.
I do. Who?
So here's a guy within 4 years of being in the league. Cal McCarr is the Norris Trophy winner for the best defenseman. I think he scored 28 goals this year. He's totally re-energized that franchise, and he's a Conn Smythe winner, and now he's a Stanley Cup winner. And I think he's just scratching the surface too. All in all, not only has he made these deals, and they've done some great drafting and picked up some other guys like Jack Johnson. They plugged him in this year, did a great job for them. The other guy, he kept the coach, Jared Bednar, who is now the only coach, I believe, in the NHL that's won in the East Coast League, the American League, and the NHL in the history of the league. So that's pretty impressive, right?
Yeah. And also changed the whole look of coaches, by the way. He was the first real handsome kind of guy to stand behind a bench. And now like, and all dressed up and stand behind. Now they're all trying to dress up and outlook each other and use a little bit of Just for Men and be all cool and stuff. But
the wife likes a little gray, right? A touch of gray, right?
A touch of
salt
gray.
and pepper. Yeah.
A touch of knowledge. That's what I call it. You know, it's something that, and also he never went out and just spent money. They really kept they always had a lot left over for the cap, right? So they could get something. Because as a year ago, we were talking, was Landeskog going to even be there?
Right.
We were like, oh, he wants money. I don't know. Who knows how close he was to leaving, but I remember us talking about that. One of the things was Seattle. Would he go to Seattle? I can't remember what other teams are. I'm sure everybody is just, oh, we should have got that guy. And Kadri, they let him grow too. They let him figure out You know,
Mhm.
he hasn't been the smartest player, but they let him grow. You know, you gotta let you just can't serve the soup. You gotta let the soup come together, and I think that's you know.
Like us. Are we like soup? Or but we're still trying to come together.
Yeah,
70, what are we, 74 into this
yeah, I'm
today? But
celery standing on top of the water, going, man.
but that's a great point. I can't believe I'm saying that, but they just kind of let it percolate and let it do its thing. It simmered there for a long time, and all of a sudden they
Mhm.
blew the lid off it, and they're like, "Try this soup out. It's fantastic."
They could have they could have panicked 3 years ago.
Well, and where they could have really hit the panic button is when they lost to Vegas last year, because
Not last year, year
the
before. Yeah, yeah, last
last
year.
year.
Yeah.
So what happened was they looked a lot like going through the playoffs, and through game 2 against Vegas, they looked like this juggernaut. Like they were still offensive and pressing the pace of the game while
Hmm.
protecting the league or the lead, sorry, which was really impressive. They gave it to Vegas the first 2 games, and then all of a sudden Vegas was able to turn the screws on them and came back and beat them 4 straight. And they were in shock. But the thing about with McKinnon and those guys, I mean, he was blatantly honest. He goes, I've been in the league 9 years. I haven't won anything. This sucks. And you can look at the way that roster's constructed in Colorado and say, well, Nathan McKinnon's making $6 million a year. He's a bargain. They'll never keep him for that. I'll tell you what, they're going to be able to find a way to give him a substantial raise, and I think still
They
be
still got
competitive.
room.
Well, they do. And here's the other thing. Now they're going to have guys that are going to want to come and play there, because I think it's pretty evident, and we'll see if they go on and win some more cups. But the only thing that guy's really interested in is winning cups. I
Hmm.
mean, we talk about what he's worth. Yeah, he's probably a $12 million player in the league. Right? I mean, if you're paying McDavid 13, you're paying Matthews, what, 11? So maybe he's somewhere between 10 and 13 million. But he strikes me as the kind of guy that's like, okay, listen, 6 million, yeah, I'm going to make more than that.
Yeah.
But giving his team a chance to to be able to be competitive every year, because I think if you look at some teams, they're so top heavy with McCarr's deal's got to kick in still too. But some of these teams are so top heavy with their superstars, and Toronto is a team that comes to mind. And Toronto was a sliver from being Tampa Bay this year, I think. But
They
you
were,
have,
but which means they wouldn't have beat the
yeah,
Avalanche. You know what I mean?
well, they could have skated with the Avalanche, but who knows? I mean, you got to remember Tampa Bay is just unbelievable. We can get to them in a second, but if you
Hmm.
look at teams like Toronto and some of these other teams that are very good, they're very top heavy with their salary cap on certain players, and Edmonton's kind of another one. But Colorado's not quite there yet, but they're sneaking up on it because Landeskog's getting paid now. Makar's going to start getting paid, and we're not too far away from McKinnon. What's he got? Another 2 years at $6 million, and then they're going to have to pay him. So
You find ways to make it so it's attractive, and so they get more money. And if you can talk, if a guy's able to be talked into not making 9 and making 6, but getting a Stanley Cup, I think that's the player you want rather than the guy that wants 9 million and doesn't care about the Stanley Cup.
yeah, and just remember, you have to be able to pay your depth guys a little bit, and
Hmm.
because look at how effective Colorado's depth was in the
Hmm.
playoffs. They got so much out of their 5 and 6 D. Manson's, what's he making?
He was
4, I
he
think.
was that was amazing.
Yeah, like I
Yeah.
mean, sometimes he can skate, but what I noticed about Manson is the physicality and in that he
Yeah.
brought. Jack Johnson and Eric Johnson, like Eric's been there a long time, but Jack Johnson just so steady for them,
J and
right?
J.
Yeah, and then Eric Johnson did a great job. Then you got your 2 superstars in Makar and Taves, which was awesome. But then you got Coglianos, you got Darren Helms of the world. You got those guys up your lineup. JT Comfort, a kind of a depth guy for you. They scored big goals, but they also played big minutes and played against the other team's top lines a lot and did a
Hmm.
great job. So I think in the end they wore Tampa down. Tampa was a little bit fatigued, but you got to give Tampa credit. I don't know if anybody watched them go through the playoffs was waiting for the other shoe to drop, and they just kept winning rounds and winning rounds.
Mm-hmm.
But they just didn't have an answer for
When I
Colorado.
knew they had, when I knew that Tampa was in trouble? When they
No.
started complaining. They never,
Yes.
I'm like,
Yeah.
oh, this is a different team.
Yeah. Great point. They got a little whiny there. And,
Yeah.
let's not lose sight of the fact that this team was a couple games away from being a dynasty in this league. And they're still going to go down as one of the best teams ever.
Absolutely.
Because you could say, well, they won 2 in a row. They kept the majority of those guys. They lost out in 6. But you're right. They got a little bit whiny. One of the things that didn't help is when, and Cooper's a Hall of Fame coach already, but he complained about the too many men on the ice. I can tell you, anybody that watches hockey can tell you, there's changes like that every night in every game that's played.
Night, I know. If you're gonna go with that, the game's gonna be 5 hours long.
Yeah, you can't. You know what? And you got to give these refs an opportunity. Now, the next game they caught Colorado in a too many men, but I mean, the difference of where McKinnon was, and
did you think that was kind of a to Cooper? I was like, all right, we'll throw this. Here you go, Avalanche, too many men. Suck it, Cooper.
Yeah, when they scored in Tampa, McKinnon had no effect on that play at all. He was basically standing, waiting to get into the bench. People got to move. It's not that easy to get into those benches. Mm-hmm. And after a 2-minute shift or however long he'd been out there, he's not jumping over the boards and kicking someone with the skate. So he's standing there trying to get in. Right. That's what's going on there. It's like bringing a ship into port, into the harbor, onto the dock. You're not going to run the ship into the dock at 25 knots, mm-hmm. right? You got to get everybody set up. And that's kind of the same thing with going in and out of the bench. You got to go in there and proceed with caution because you're going to step on someone. If you jump over the boards, you might kick someone. There's a lot of things that could happen. So
I'm surprised they haven't. I'm surprised they haven't already changed that too many men rule to if your sixth player is actually doing something where they can affect the game.
Well, they've kind of done that. It's a 5 feet from the boards, but in this,
if like when what's his face is when Landeskog's blade broke the other day, I think they could have called another too many men because when they were pushing him over there and the other guy jumped on.
Oh, 100% they could have.
He's out of the game. He's not affecting the game. He's struggling to get off the ice. And these guys are coming off the ice. They're not affecting the game. Your new players out there. I think you can micromanage again too far, and instead of just going, all right, we know.
You know what's funny is someone was telling me yesterday. I think it was either the Islanders or the Rangers. Tampa had 7 guys on the ice and they scored one of their goals.
That's awesome.
I mean, you know what I mean? It just is going to happen. Edmonton, if you want to wind the clock back into the 80s, Edmonton used to, they were winning those cups and they had the art of the change down. Their guy would come in the one door, if they say the closest door to him, and the play was going up the ice, the other guy would come out the other door. He'd gain 20 feet. Mm-hmm. Right. And then they finally are like, whoa, we got to kind of, but Edmonton, I mean, if you're not cheating, you're not trying. I'm certainly on the goal that was scored in the winner in Tampa in game 4. I'm certainly not going to say McKinnon had any effect, but when they called the too many men on Colorado in game 5, McKinnon was still right around the red line and the other guy came out and got the puck. So I get it. Yeah. That's a little bit more blatant, right? Yeah. Here's the other thing too, is you can't show the refs up. Like, I know those guys weren't trying to show the refs up, but you can't put the refs in that position. Mm-hmm. Just 1,001, 1,002, give yourself another 1,000 and then change so the refs don't have to make that call. Because out of all the calls, that and flipping the puck over the glass are probably the 2 calls the refs want to make the least. Right. And you know what? There's no judgment in the puck going over the glass. It either hits the glass or it doesn't. There is judgment on the too many men.
Right. There's too much. Yeah. All right.
Yeah.
Well, I think Tampa is mentally they may have been more fatigued, which starts the complaining.
Mhm.
But that's so much hockey. We talk about how much hockey that is. That's so much hockey they've played through the pandemic. It's. I don't think Tampa's going anywhere. It's annoying. They're kind of like Montreal in the 70s. They're going to be there for a while. They're going to be hanging around. They're going to be pushing things because I don't think they need to get rid of anybody, right? Everybody signed up basically.
The only guy, well, there's going to be a couple guys, obviously, but Palat is, he's he's a huge part of that,
Mhm.
that team. So they're going to have to figure out if they can fit him in. The only thing with Tampa is,
But at the same time, they were able to go all the way to one game away without him.
without Point.
Well,
Was
I'm sorry
Point
at
that
that
was up.
point. That's what
Right. So you're right. So you know what? If Braden Point's in that series healthy, we might be having a different conversation. But here's the thing with Tampa. We talked about the wraparound and how it affected the Final Four from last year. Vegas looked fatigued this year. They couldn't really, a lot of injuries, but they could never really get on track. New York, the Islanders were the same, except a little bit worse. And then Montreal was a complete disaster. So now Vegas and New York had played the most hockey other than Tampa in the last 3 years. Tampa now ends the game ended on June 27th. So camp comes back in September, right? They still don't have, like normally the Stanley Cup Final is going to end around the 12th to the 15th somewhere. So they've lost 2 weeks. So the summer is going to fly by for these guys again, and then they're going to be back and they're going to have their fourth run at the Roses. And so it'll be interesting to see how Colorado, but specifically how Tampa gets themselves back and going, because they weren't great during the season and they weren't even great to start the Toronto series, but then they started to kind of find their game. And it'll be interesting to see what Tampa does. If you look at them, they still have the Vasilevsky, the goalie. They have Hedman, Chernak. They've got McDonough and Sergachev all signed, as far as I know. So with those 5 players right there, top 4D in the league, that's the best defense in the league, in my opinion. Those top 4 guys, and best goalie or one of the best goalies, you're going to be competitive.
Absolutely. It was great. I enjoyed watching it. I missed a couple games, but when I could see it, it was so much fun to watch. Wasn't a big fan of ESPN's coverage. I hope TNT gets the finals next year, but I don't think that's in the cards. I think they've signed a contract for so many years that ESPN's gonna have to pick up the pace if they want to make the game grow even more. And now we have 2 months off, like you say, but coming up, is it January? July 1st is free agency, right?
It's pushed back this year. It's the second week of July. I think it's the 11th or the 13th. Hey, and one thing before we move on from that, and we can talk about some of the new coaches. I want to talk about some of the other coaches, but the speed of the final and how quick those games went. There wasn't a lot of overtime this year, which was actually for people that want to go to bed at night. They were probably happy about it. But I was so impressed with the speed. And the refs didn't get a lot of credit, but the refs were let them play, but let the speed come back into the game. Right. And they say, you know what, everything's a copycat league, right? So it's going to be really interesting to see, how these other teams go about building their teams to compete with Colorado now. I mean, the speed was crazy, and I don't see anybody out west. There's going to be some suitors for the top dog, but I think Colorado goes in clearly the top dog next year. Absolutely. And who can catch them? It's like catch me if you can. That's how they play, and their coach and their organizational thinking, the way they focus on their team is we're going for it. And that's a fun way to live your life, right? If you're always on to the next, and that's kind of how they are, footloose and fancy free.
Let's talk about who's left for coaches, and what positions are left, and then we're gonna scoot out of here. That's what we're gonna do. We're gonna talk
Okay.
about coaches. So Winnipeg still needs a coach.
Hmm.
Chicago hired a coach, so they don't
It
need.
looks like they're going to hire Luke Richardson, who's been a longtime assistant in Montreal. Has done a great job there. Comes highly recommended.
Uh-huh.
Boston needs a coach, right? I don't think
Mhm.
Boston's made anybody yet.
Detroit,
Um, Detroit. So who's out there, right? Barry Trotz took his name out of the list. You got
which
Babcock.
is a
Well,
great thing. I think big just saying, hey, not there right now. You know, when you got that kind of confidence, that might he might and nobody's really said this. What if he's just waiting for a different job? What if he knows somebody's going to get fired? Like
yeah, well, he's on the payroll for another year at
right.
what,
So,
five
but somebody's
million.
going to be somebody's going to he's still wanted. So somebody's going to be fired by December. We know how it
Well,
works.
I can tell you how, at least from friends of ours that are in the game, they want to stay in the game. They want to keep going because once you fall out, you become irrelevant in a lot of
Right.
cases. That's a way a lot of coaches look at it. Trotz didn't look at it that way. Paul Maurice didn't look at it that way.
Which worked out great for him.
Yeah, and now and Paul's now going to Florida, which I think is going to be. I'm a big Paul Maurice fan. I think he's a fantastic coach.
We know somebody
That
else that
team,
should be going there too.
yeah. Well, we have some other friends that aren't going with him, but Maurice has a great nucleus of players in Florida,
Mm-hmm.
and I think with the way he looks at it, he's a very deep thinker. I think their mountain to climb is in the same state, right? They got to get over top of Tampa,
Mm-hmm.
and not to mention some of those other teams. So I think he'll do a great job. But one thing that people might or might not know, and I can't remember if we brought this up a couple weeks ago, I was told there was 40 to 50 coaches, and that's head coaches and assistant coaches on expiring contracts this year. So there's
Mm-hmm.
going to be a lot of movement. There's going to be movement in head coaching. There's going to be a lot of movement with the assistant coaches. It's going to be really
Yeah.
interesting to see. So
40 to 50. Yeah.
that's a lot. I mean,
what do you,
yeah.
which team do you think is most exciting out there? What is the one, like what team, if you're a coach, which team would you be hoping to get that's still left?
Well, Boston, right? I mean,
Boston,
I
Original Six. Oh, Detroit.
there. Well, there's different ways to look at this. Okay, Boston, great city, great town, original 16, perennially a playoff contender. Players want to go there. Okay. Another team that I think isn't far away, but they need to figure it out and get some cohesiveness back is Winnipeg.
Mm-hmm.
Winnipeg's ready to win, and that's that's in the Central Division. That's pretty impressive to say. I think Detroit is a little bit further away,
I think
but
Detroit is general manager is the complete opposite of Denver's general manager.
well,
I
don't
feel like
forget Stevie put together Tampa. I mean
I
that
know,
those
but he didn't have the freedom that he has in Detroit. He's got a different freedom in Detroit.
yeah. Well, he's also got the weight of the world on his shoulders because he's the Hall of
Yeah,
Fame
yeah,
player that put that
but
organization back.
sometimes you need somebody to calm you down that's above you, and I feel like he needs that. He doesn't seem to have somebody above him that goes, "Hey, man, just relax a little bit. Let's get this." And he seems it to me. It seems a little like when you can change the game when you play, and then you can't change the game when you coach or manage. It's got that feel to it.
Well, it's a lot tougher to sit and
And I know you don't
watch.
want to say anything bad because you ran.
No. I mean,
And I'm not saying anything bad. It's just it's got a feel where it's I don't want to say Gretzky in Arizona because that was everybody doesn't want to remember that even happened. But it's got a little bit. It's got a little bit where we go. Oh, he needs somebody that's a mentor. He needs somebody that's just a little bit above him, that it doesn't feel like he's got somebody that he can talk to that's
Right.
right. I don't know if I'm stumbling over this, but I don't want to say anything bad, but at the same time, I'm like, he needs somebody to go, no, relax.
Well, if you look at Detroit, right,
I'm
original
the guy.
six, you might be the guy to go above. Um,
Steven,
so
tea and bag, calm down.
I look at Stevie, we're talking about Stevie Y, right? So we look at him, I know him from playing with him. And this guy was elite in his work ethic, and he's carried that on. His fingerprints are all over the Tampa Bay Lightning. Now, he wasn't there when they won the cups, but he also didn't panic and start pulling all these levers before he left for the opportunity in Detroit. In Detroit, this is picking up a whole city and a whole organization because he's the guy that put it back on the map. Remember, when just before Stevie got drafted, we go back to 83, they were giving away free cars to get people in the building. The next thing you know, they draft him.
It just says how bad GM was that they had to give cars away.
I wonder, I got to go back. I think they were GM of Buick or something, but Mr. Ilitch bought the team, and now the Ilitch family still owns the team. And Stevie, I just think he feels, I don't know, indebted.
Responsible.
Responsible is a great word to get this thing back together. Now look at some of the guys he's brought in. He Seider was the rookie of the year as a defenseman. This guy is next level. And then they got, forget the forward's name that they brought in last year, the young forward. He scored 20 or 25 for him. So they've got pieces. Our buddy Hoods was there coaching. He did a great job, obviously, but the team wasn't where it needed to be. And I think Stevie obviously feels responsible for that. So I think as big of, for him is getting the right coach in there. And is that a veteran guy? Do you bring Babcock back? Do you bring Joel Quenneville in? Who do you bring in, or do you bring a young guy in? I don't know. But, we talk about Detroit. I can tell you what, and Hoods talked about it when we were on with him a few weeks ago. That team travels. You go anywhere in the league and there's Red Wing fans.
Mm-hmm.
So where's Detroit in the scheme of things? I'm not sure. I think they'd like to address goaltending. And you know what? And obviously they'd like to see some of their guys that they've drafted maybe step in next year. But you're not going to step in with 5-6 guys out of the minors and you need your veteran guys. So for Stevie this summer, for me, looking at the Red Wings, I would just say he's going to want to have a look at what's going on in goal. What are they going to do there? Are they going to do anything? Who's ready from the farm? But who is ready to come in as a veteran? And I'll give you a name that just won a Stanley Cup that was in Detroit forever, Darren Helm.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And so a guy like that, a Cogliano, guys that come to the rink every day and provide, a certain level and professionalism, know the way around. But a guy like Helm might be a great pickup for him, knows the organization. He's come back with a cup. He's got all kinds of cred. Stevie knows him. I don't know, but we'll have to wait and see. I'm trying to think of who else needs a coach right now. I mean, Dallas got DeBoer, which is, who wouldn't want to go coach in Florida, even though every night you play a road game in Florida because the majority of the fans are from outside the city for the opposing team. But Dallas, right. I think Dallas could be an unbelievable spot if DeBoer can, get things going there.
I think I think DeBoer will do very well there, and I think Mo will do very well down in Florida. I don't know. I don't know what Winnipeg does. I don't know what Boston does. Sweeney does some very interesting things. They really are tight with the money in Boston. They don't like to let people make a lot of money in Boston. It's always a team-friendly deal. So I think.
Well, let's see what Patrice Bergeron does. If he comes back, that takes away a big hole in their lineup. If he doesn't come back, it creates.
Who else do you think's chasing him? Do you think does anybody else have a chance to get him other than Boston?
Well, if you look around, I would be hard.
Is he from Montreal? Or is he from Toronto?
I know. I think he's a Quebec kid, so I think he's from Montreal.
He's going to go work at Bombardier.
I don't see him signing with the Canadians. Watch him sign with the Canadians. I just don't see it because he's been in Boston forever, right? They got to
Right.
play each other 4 times a year. He's not. I don't think he's wanting to do that.
Doesn't want to get booed 4 times a year.
The only place I could see him outside of Boston right now, and I'm not saying there isn't someone else going to throw a pile of money at him, but what's he been there almost 20 years? I could see maybe if he followed Cassidy out to Vegas, I could see him come out here for a year or two if he wanted to try something different.
Mhm.
But I mean, even Cassidy talked about it. He was rooted in Boston. You know, his kids are Patriots fans, Bruins fans, and now he's talking the other day about his kids. Okay, you gotta be a Knights fan now, and he's telling his son, "Sorry, son, but you got to cheer for the Raiders." You know, and so Cassidy was what there 6 years.
Mhm.
Bergeron's been there, you know, 3 times as long.
Mhm.
So what's he going to want to do? And those guys are treated like royalty out there. Like Boston knows how to treat and take care of their heroes. And so, and he's a hero out there. So I don't know what's going to happen to Bergeron. I mean, would I love to see him come out to Vegas? Absolutely, I would. I'd love to see him play in the Western Conference and watch this guy play every night. But I think for him at this point, it's probably more about what his family wants to do. And maybe if he wants to come back, if he wants to recharge his batteries with something fresh. I don't know.
Interesting. All right. Any shout outs? Any shout outs, Jeff?
Yeah, just a shout out. We'll give a shout out to a guy that we talked about earlier, a guy that was an unbelievable pro, now an unbelievable general manager, got a Stanley Cup. He's got one as a player, one as a GM, Joe Sakic, Burnaby Joe, they used to call him. So good for him. Super nice guy. And it just goes to show you that good things do happen to nice people.
I'll give a shout out to the Sedines and to Robert Luongo that ended up in the Hockey Hall of Fame without rings. So I was actually I was happy for them. I don't know how they pick who goes into the Hockey Hall of Fame. I don't know who does the voting. I don't know if it's a select committee or if it's reporters, but I don't understand the Hockey Hall of Fame because there's a certain time it has to happen in. And I don't understand why there's a time limit it's got to happen in. You know, when it should be when if one day they're sitting around, they go, you know what, we didn't realize how important that guy was to the game 20 years ago. Let's put him in. They should put him in.
Well, Alfredson from Ottawa gets in too, and there's another guy that when you think of an organization, I mean, he kind of helped put Ottawa on the map, and you know, Ottawa's kind of scuffling now, but yeah, good for those guys. And I don't know if they need to look at the criteria, how they pick it again. It's a little above my pay grade, but all those guys that are going in are very deserving.
And yeah, I guess as always, Brian Almy, who does all the work on the show. Brian, he produces this. We just talk, and then he takes it and puts all the stuff in and adds things, and we'll give him a shout out. We should give him one every week is what we should do. Right?
He should go in the builders category.
Brian should go in the builders category. Almy from Alm Tech Solutions. If you got a computer problems, go to Alm Tech Solutions. Check him out. Brian Almy, producer. Whatever. Loved all.
Loved all.